Welcome to the Tech Recruitment Academy. We are building this digital support platform to help you guys close more candidates, fill more vacancies. Especially we focus on the tech vacancies because I used to be a developer, a CTO. So like all these backend developers, front-end developers, web developers, JavaScript developers, like these are the most exciting positions for me personally. And yeah, I know some of you get excited about IT also because it's growing, right? Like sometimes people transition from non-tech recruitment to IT recruitment just because there is not much hiring in travel or hospitality. So yeah, there were some people also in March cohort. Maybe you remember Malay. For example, Maria was transitioning, but yeah. Yeah, like we organize these bi-weekly mentoring calls where we share hands-on experience and practices, and we try to really make it more hands-on by showing some case studies, organize access to video courses. So I have recorded over 25 video courses. So some of you already have access to it. Sourcing webinars, which is what you are part of right now. So this is also something I'm super passionate about because, you know, at the end of the day, IT recruitment is not any rocket science. If we have the right mindset and the frame in our mind, you know, the right mind maps, then it all gets easier. We have also produced booklets and ebooks. So as a part of the academy, you can get access to it. The mind maps, obviously, that make it much more easy, especially when it comes to talking to hiring managers or candidates. So you know what to ask based on the particular area. And the program that I was already mentioning a few times is supposed to help you understand some of the terminology, because during these sourcing webinars, for example, we don't have really time to cover it all. So this is also the members area that we are tweaking and improving, and we will be relaunching it in mid-June roughly. So we'll be more active than we ever were here. So yeah, that actually brings us to the topic for today, which is sourcing and how to actually even understand the position of a full stack PHP developer. This kind of a position is also close to my heart because like 10, 12 years ago, I was a PHP developer, especially the backend developer. Then I transitioned to full stack, and then I was no longer coding anymore, but I still remember some of these principles. But you know, we in recruitment don't really need to know how to code. We just need to understand the IT landscape. So when we receive a JD of a full stack PHP developer such as this one, then we can understand what are the must-have skills, what is the essential terminology. So you know, on one end, the full stack PHP may seem relatively straightforward, but also it's good to keep in mind that there are still lots of PHP developers out there, and lots of companies are looking for PHP developers. So that's why also I have chosen this position. Also, one of our clients is looking for full stack PHP developers. So we are looking at the real JD, which is relatively straightforward, as we will see. So it starts with PHP. You know, PHP is the programming language. It's one of those languages that are used on the backend side. It was actually created over, I don't know, 20 years ago to build websites. So it cannot really be used to create mobile apps or desktop applications or whatnot. It's just for web development, especially on the backend, right? So we are looking at the description of the technical stack. So this is a screenshot of what we received from the client of ours. So they describe the technical stack, which is something I really like and appreciate. And I always suggest that even if you don't receive the JD this way, like rewrite it or ask the client to tell you more about the technical stack, because developers want to see it upfront right away. What are the technologies the new joiner will be working with? So in this case, the technical stack, which is a set of technologies as the developer will be working with. You know, it's one of those technical terms, technical stack, tech stack. So the technical stack includes PHP, programming language, Symfony framework, Angular, TypeScript on the front end. So now we see backend and front end, right? If you try to visualize it, on the front end, there is PHP programming language with Symfony framework, and Angular with TypeScript is used on the front end. Kubernetes cluster hosted in AWS. So AWS stands for Amazon Web Services. Probably I'll type some of these keywords to chat so you guys can follow up. Oh, hi, Elena. Hello, just noticed the message. So AWS, Amazon Web Services, and the other big companies have their own cloud services. So Microsoft has Azure. What else? Google has their Google Cloud Platform, right? So different companies have different clouds. Oracle or IBM, they have their own clouds. But AWS stands for Amazon Web Services. So now we know this company is running on Amazon with Kubernetes, Docker. They don't mention it, but it's quite common stack, commonly used together, Kubernetes. And the Jenkins is powering the CI/CD pipeline. So CI/CD stands for continuous integration, continuous deployment, which are the DevOps practices. So after we read these 4 bullet points, we have quite a good idea about the technical stack, right? About the technologies the developer will be working with. So it's not just backend, it's not just front end, it's also the DevOps part of it. So we know how the team works. They use Jenkins to automate the pipeline. They use Kubernetes to scale the servers, and they run everything on Amazon. Testing, staging, production environments. So with this subtle statement, we know they have the DevOps best practices in place. They have the testing environment plus staging environment, production. So developers, before they release code to production, they test it on the testing environment. So in other words, they have a dedicated server or virtual server dedicated just to testing. Staging is somewhere in between, so between testing and production. So it's usually for the QA team, quality assurance team, to test if the integrations work, and then it passes to production. So with this, we see how the team works. They have adopted some of these DevOps best practices, so that's really cool. And a developer looks at it and they quickly see and gauge if they want to work in such environment or not. So if a developer comes and looks at it, they quickly see, yeah, this is a technical stack I want to work with or not, which is also the reason why I like to put this kind of information on top of the job advert, job description, job advert, to make it really easy for the developer to quickly sense if he or she is a good fit for this. Responsibilities: design and implement APIs, implement front-end components, and integrate with backend APIs, own the whole development pipeline. So what does this tell us actually, right? The responsibilities of the full stack developer will be to implement APIs. So that's sort of obvious because that's what backend developers do anyway. They implement some APIs. Implement front-end components, integrate with backend APIs. Well, this also doesn't really tell us much at the second bullet point because, well, that's what front-end developers do anyway. Own the whole development pipeline from technical design and development. Fair enough. So this indicates some additional responsibility. So the developer is probably supposed to be senior. So we are not really looking for anyone junior in this case, but rather someone senior, someone who can own the pipeline and work with product managers and designers on definition of new features, So probably not a junior person, right? It was not written anywhere if they're looking for a junior or senior, but as we are going through this third and fourth bullet point, it feels like at least a mid-year developer, probably senior developer will be needed. Collaborate with other developers, code reviews, retrospectives. Well, that usually goes without saying anyway. So, these responsibilities are rather obvious. As a backend developer, you will be working on the backend, creating APIs. As a front-end developer, you will be creating the front-end interface of the website. As a full stack developer, you'll be working on both backend and front-end. So it sort of doesn't really tell us anything, but at least we know they're looking for someone senior. You should have a backend development experience, front-end development experience. So from the description of the technical stack, we already know they are looking for the PHP developer, and Symfony is plus, but not required. And this is quite cool. I'll tell you why in a second. The front-end development experience, again, Angular is a plus, but not required. Interesting, right? Interesting. So experience with a relational database such as Postgres or MySQL. So relational databases, but Postgres or MySQL, they don't require a specific knowledge of either Postgres or MySQL, but one of them, and at least a basic understanding of Docker. So now this gets quite interesting, right? Because at first, they describe their technical stack. This is what we work with. But then later on, we see that they are open to train people to work with the technical stack. So obviously the PHP knowledge is important, and Symfony, which is the framework, is desired but not mandatory. So if there is a good, decent PHP developer, they would accept him or her. If the full stack developer has been working with Angular, then that's great. But if the full stack developer has been working with React, they would also consider such developer. So it's quite interesting, and it opens up quite a few options for us now. We don't just need to look for Symfony developers with Angular experience, but we can look for Symfony with React, or Laravel with Angular, or Laravel with React, and we can come up with a range of different scenarios. Basic understanding of Docker, habit of writing tests, well, that's okay. So you should be driven to learn, able to challenge others, highly autonomous, and have ability to solve problems, friendly, respectful. Well, that's all nice. We believe in learning. I lack some of the hard skills still apply. So, we receive this from the client, but after reading this, we don't really know what do they work on. So my first question was to learn more about what do they actually do, what kind of platform do they build. So it's easier to understand this and eventually sell to the developer, right? Because they have lots of opportunities. Like, so many companies are looking for full stack PHP developers. PHP is used by, I don't know, half of the development teams still, because there are just countless of projects written in PHP. So it should stand out in some way. So what I will do, I will again use the whiteboard to help you guys visualize who is needed, what kind of skill set, because we see it's not as straightforward. We see the technical stack. They use PHP, they use Symfony, they use Angular, but they are looking for people who may not know it yet, but are keen to learn and can learn on the job. And I know the CTO, and he's very open-minded. He knows that a React developer can learn Angular relatively quickly. So with this in mind, he is able to just get someone senior and train on the job within a week or a month at max. Do you guys have any questions to anything which is on the screen as a part of the JD? Oh, Mala, you are asking if you are muted. You need to click the button, because this is a webinar. It's not like a meeting that we had in March, but this is like a open-ended webinar. So you need to raise your hand. There is some button. If you go to, there are some emojis in the menu, and you just somehow raise your hand, and I need to click allow to talk, and then you can talk. I can also try to do it proactively now. So now you should be able to talk if you would like to ask anything. So just feel free to unmute and ask. And Aspasia is asking, someone senior in another backend stack. That's a good question. I'll answer in a second. And which stack is relevant with PHP? Okay, so you know what? I'll stop sharing for a second, and I'll show you the whiteboard, which is right behind me. So hold a sec. And I would like you to understand that in IT there is this pyramid. So take it as a rule of thumb. On the bottom of the pyramid is computer science. Computer science, which is really difficult. It takes years to learn, probably, I know, 3 to 5 years to go through the computer science degree and graduate. And then software engineering, which takes around 2 years to go through, get the degree. And then as a software engineer, you learn some programming language, 1, 2, 3, or more. So here is a programming language. And if you already know the programming language, then you usually learn to use a particular framework, because when developers start new projects, they don't want to start from scratch all the time. That would be super, super cumbersome. So they use some templates that help them start new projects in a more efficient way. So the frameworks are right here. And there are some libraries on top of the pyramid. So say this takes 3 to 5 years, 2 years, maybe 1 year to learn a programming language, maybe 1 month to learn a framework, and 1 week to learn a particular library. So take this as a rule of thumb. A computer science degree, 3 years, software engineering degree on top of it, 2 years, programming language, 1 year. Like, as a part of the software engineering study, the developer would already learn a few programming languages. But say, if I would like to learn a new programming language now, then it would take me probably a year to learn it really well. For example, C# or PHP. And if I already know the programming language, then it would take me maybe a month to learn how to use a particular framework, which is like a template, for example, Symfony in this case. Okay, so with this in mind, we know that if the company is looking for a PHP developer, which is right here, PHP developer, and it takes 1 year to learn the programming language, you cannot look for a C# developer. Okay, to answer your first question, Aspasia, it would not make sense to look for a C# developer, because it would take way too long for the C# developer to learn PHP. It's completely different language. It's like from Chinese to English, or from English to Spanish. So that's very different. But if the PHP developer already knows Symfony, then the developer can learn Laravel relatively quickly. Or if the developer knows Laravel, then he or she can learn Symfony relatively quickly. We are talking about maybe 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks, up to 1 month. It depends on the seniority of the person. So the more senior the IT professional, the easier it is to learn the additional programming language or a framework, or which, the framework is just some template. They learn how to use the template and they use it every day. So with this in mind, what also we've seen on the job requirement was that they accept someone who does not know Symfony yet, but has strong understanding of Laravel, for example. Or if the developer doesn't know Symfony nor Laravel, but they know, for example, Zend, which is a PHP framework, then they would also take this person because this particular skill can be learned within a few weeks, 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, roughly. Okay, so this is what the requirement was pretty much telling us, and now we know that we may look for PHP developer with Symfony or PHP with Zend or PHP with Laravel, but that's not the end of it, because that's just the backend side. Okay, so this was the backend side, but on the front end side, programming language used is JavaScript. Which would take, again, a year or more to learn like really properly. So you need to get someone who already knows JavaScript, but the framework could be either Angular or React or Vue.js or some other framework. So we've seen in the job requirement also that the candidate could know either React or Angular or Vue.js. In the best case, the developer would know Angular. That's the best case scenario. But the hiring manager is open to get someone with strong React or Vue.js experience and train the person to use Angular. So also here, Symfony is the desired programming language, desired framework, but they are keen to get someone who can use either Laravel or Zend. So quite interesting combinations, right? A whole matrix of options opens up for us. So let me check comments to see what you guys write. If there is a developer like Fullstack developer with Laravel and AWS PHP must be mentioned on his profile compulsory. Like usually developers write the programming language and the framework on their profile. So usually yes. Usually yes. AWS does not necessarily have to be, because it's again on this pyramid, I would say it's like the framework, something that could be learned within a few days or weeks at most. Certainly not months or years. Like it's a cloud service provider. It's usually well documented. It's easy to use, so the developer can learn how to use AWS or Google Cloud Platform or Microsoft Azure or IBM Cloud. They just learn it usually on the go. We are not talking about administrators, but about developers who use the particular cloud solution. So with that, they may not necessarily write it on their profile, because it's like you guys, for example, if you use some CRM system, whether you use Zoho or Pipedrive or Sales CRM, you don't write it on your resume, right? I use Zoho Recruit or Zoho CRM or Pipedrive. You don't really write it in your profiles because it somehow doesn't make much sense. You can, but it certainly is not compulsory. So with this, we see a few really interesting combinations. So you know what? I'll take a photo of this, and then I will clean it, and I will show you these different combinations that we have at our disposal. So the combination number one, we are looking for PHP. I'll change colors. PHP plus Angular plus Symfony. Actually, I'll change the order. It will be easier. So PHP, Symfony, plus Angular. The second combination is PHP plus, on the backend side, for example, Laravel, plus Angular by default. That would be best. But the CTO would also get someone who uses, for example, React. So PHP plus Symfony plus React, and PHP plus Laravel plus React. Okay, it's quite cool, right? So we see Symfony here, and we see Angular and Angular. React, Laravel. So a few combinations, and obviously there are many more combinations because there are more PHP frameworks and more JavaScript frameworks. But this is something for us to start with, because the hiring manager, as you've seen, wrote, again, I'll get back to the JD, that they are open to someone who knows PHP with Symfony or something else, Laravel, Zend, and on the front end with Angular in the best case, but the alternative is also acceptable. So, for example, some other frameworks, and if you don't recall these frameworks from top of your mind, you can always go to these mind maps that I have created, and you can open up the mind map on the page number 13, and you will see all these frameworks, especially those most popular ones. For example, within the PHP landscape, you can see right here Symfony, Laravel, Cake PHP, Zend, Lumen. Okay, or on the JavaScript side, you can see Angular, React, Vue.js, Ember, for example. Okay, so these combinations we could start looking for, because apparently they would be a good fit. The hiring manager is willing to invest time, probably a week or 2 weeks during the onboarding, to let the candidate, the new joiner, to learn it on the job, if the candidate does not know Angular, for example, or hasn't worked with it yet. Let me check questions meanwhile. Can it be someone senior in another backend stack? So that is coming back to this programming language. So PHP, that's mandatory. PHP is mandatory because it would take way too long to learn a new programming language, and also JavaScript. So probably I should also include this other must-have skill: JavaScript. Okay, so it's JavaScript, PHP, Symfony, Angular, JavaScript, PHP, Laravel, Angular, JavaScript, PHP, Symfony, React, JavaScript, PHP, Laravel, React. So it's quite interesting, right? We have now a few options on how to find the right candidate. So it's quite interesting, right? Because usually what I see people do is they open up a job requirement and they just look at, oh yeah, this is a requirement, this is the technical stack, I look for exactly this person. But the hiring manager is telling us they are open to train the new joiner. So they are willing to interview and get on board someone who is not 100% fit. Obviously, it's preferred if the candidate is Symfony and Angular expert, but they are sort of realistic and know that these people may not be on the market right away. So they are willing to compromise on this. Does it make sense to you guys? Is it how you would approach this JD also? Do you guys have any questions? And Malay, you probably have a question. So if you do, then feel free to unmute and ask.
No, thank you. Thank you, Michael. I think you answered it already. I had another question, not so related to this particular job description.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's finish this one, and we can get back to this question later.
Okay, thanks.
Cool. So now the question is, how do we find who is a good fit? And I will open up the LinkedIn recruiter so we can look for a few candidates. But before we do, it's also good to remind ourselves that we can approach these different combinations in a slightly different way, because we see that the first option is the most desired. This is the perfect fit, right? Of course, Symfony, Angular, PHP, and JavaScript, that's the best case. The hiring manager is looking for this particular candidate. They are open to other combinations, but this is a required. This is must-have. Okay, this is must-have, and this is optional. So I would also approach these candidates in a slightly different way. So when I'm approaching Symfony and Angular developers, I would tell them like, hey, this is a great opportunity for you. You are a Symfony and Angular developer. They're looking for Symfony and Angular developers. You know, this is so cool. It could be a dream job for you. But when I'm approaching, for example, Symfony and React developer, then I would approach him or her in a slightly different way. I would say something like, hey, you know what? You've been using React for the last 3-4 years. And, Angular is also very popular. You could increase your market value if you learn also Angular. And I have a very, very interesting opportunity for you right now, because, as a React developer, you can start working on another project as an Angular developer. So, you will increase your market value, and you will know both frameworks that are most popular on the market these days. Also, if I were to approach, for example, Laravel developer, or maybe some other, let's say Zend, for example, is another framework which is not too popular anymore. So I'll list it as another combination. So JavaScript plus PHP plus Zend plus Angular. Okay, so Zend is not popular anymore. Its popularity has been decreasing. I was talking about it already last time. So we know that Zend is not popular, and we know that Symfony is popular. So what we can do when approaching this particular developer, we can tell him, like, hey, you've been using Zend, its popularity is decreasing. You can increase your market value by switching from Zend to Symfony. And by the way, I have some really cool opportunity for you. So you can increase your market value right away. Okay, so this is another angle when you know that some technology is not trending anymore. Zend has been really popular, and its popularity has been decreasing since 2011 roughly. So with this in mind, there are still lots of projects actually written in Zend framework, but the new projects are usually starting in Symfony or Laravel. So that's how I would approach these different developers and the combinations. And Juliana asked, if the JD requires front-end and back-end development experience, can we look for full-stack title with the specific frameworks? Yes, you can. Yes, you can. Actually, probably you should. You should really look for full-stack. These people usually have it written on their resume: full-stack developer, full-stack PHP developer, full-stack PHP Angular developer. These are a few combinations that you can see. So don't look just for front end or back end developer, because you are really looking for a full stack developer in this case. Okay, so I'm thinking about how to approach these candidates. I either have the ideal case, so that's very straightforward, great opportunity. If I have some alternative framework, which is equally popular, then I present it as a great opportunity, to learn the second one. And if I have a framework that is not popular anymore, then let's increase your market value, jump on a train that is popular, or what's the saying in English? So so this is a way how to approach it when then approaching these developers. Cool. So now back to the search. We can look at a few profiles. For example, I have here a very, very broad search of a PHP developer. No keywords. I just started with PHP. I would add, for example, job title, full stack engineer. And we would see, for example, a full stack developer at NDA. Now we see a few other options how to tackle this based on these frameworks, right? We know Symfony. Or Pablo is asking something. Do we need to add keywords for Kubernetes and Docker? I would not necessarily add them, because developers may not have them. It's like the example with what was it? A CRM system of recruiters. You don't necessarily write on your profile that you use Zoho Recruit or Zoho CRM or Pipedrive or Salesforce. You may, but you may not necessarily. You may write something else. So in these cases, and we will open up these profiles and they may have it written. But if you have it as a must-have, you may exclude those who just don't, because the PHP, JavaScript, those are must-have skills, and those full-stack developers will have it written. Like, there is very little chance that a full-stack PHP developer would not have PHP on their profile. That just doesn't make sense. But it's quite likely that a PHP developer would not have written Kubernetes on their profile. So keywords or skills, we could, for example, add Angular as an example. Angular. So now we will find full stack engineers who use PHP. We can also probably add it as a skill, say PHP as a skill, instead of just a generic keyword, as I started with this very generic open search. So PHP developer, someone who uses Angular, but as I mentioned, an React developer would also be a good fit. But let's now focus on Symfony or Symfony framework. So we will see that there are candidates who use, or potential, they are not candidates yet, but prospects. So let's just open up the first one and we will see if this could be potentially a good fit. And we will try these other combinations in a second. On which websites are you searching candidates? Right now, like this is LinkedIn Recruiter, at the page that I'm just sharing. It's usually much faster when I'm not sharing the screen, but as soon as I'm on Zoom call, then it's very slow. So you can see this first person, he is a PHP developer. He hasn't indicated if he is backend or full stack. In this case, it cannot be front end because PHP is not used on the front end side. I have 5 years of experience. I'm specialized in PHP, MySQL. He uses Amazon Web Services. So he describes which of the services from Amazon he uses. So it's EC2 and S3. EC2 is for the server computing power, and S3 is the storage. PHP developer, full stack developer. And let's check his skills. He also used Vue.js. He used Laravel. Laravel is the PHP backend framework, and Vue.js is the front-end framework. So if you guys don't know these from top of your mind, then just get this booklet with all these mind maps and memorize it, and it will be so much easier. So you just look at these skills and you will be able to quickly identify what is what, like, you know, JavaScript, obviously, programming language, PHP programming language, MySQL database, Laravel on the backend side, Vue.js on the front-end side. So he's a full stack developer, really. He does not use Symfony as we expected, but that's okay, because as we saw on the whiteboard, different alternatives are also acceptable for the hiring manager. But then the question is how to present this opportunity to him. So as an example, if I were to approach this developer, I would write him something like, "Hi Dima, I saw that you work with Laravel and Vue.js, and I have an opportunity. It's a really cool company. They create this and this platform, and they're looking for a PHP full stack developer. I know you work with Laravel, they work with Symfony, but the CTO is open to get someone like you on board so you can learn how to use Symfony." Okay, so you write or create this kind of a story for him or her. Paloma asked about Kubernetes. It's actually a good question. Yes, I forgot to get back to this. So, you know, these modern teams create, no worries, Aspasia. I'll be here next week. So see you again next week. So thinking about how they build scalable systems, they need to use cloud computing power like Amazon EC2, as you've seen here on the, you know, on this bullet point. EC2 is the computing power. So they create these services that are scalable and can scale up automatically and scale down with little traffic on the website. So they need to use some tools that enable them to scale it up and scale down relatively quickly and easily. So Docker is the first tool. The tool enables developers to use some, you know, sort of, imagine like a black box, which is like a black box where the application can run. The advantage of this black box is that all developers have the same environment. In the past, developers used their computers, say in my case, it would be laptop. In case of my colleague, it would be Windows. It's completely different environment. And the code would behave slightly differently. So the advantage of this black box is that I run this black box, the colleague of mine run this black box, and we run the code inside the black box. And the black box would be the same on my computer and also on my colleague's computer. So that's Docker. This is this kind of a machine inside the machine that enables to create the same environment for everyone. The advantage is that this Docker could be copy-pasted to some other server, to other computer, to another colleague in the other country with completely different laptop, and they will have the same environment, the same black box. And Kubernetes enables all these black box to scale in case there is more demand on the server. So Kubernetes is able to just sort of bring more of these together and increase their capacity. Because one black box may not be enough to handle a load of, I don't know, imagine now there is this hockey, competition. So lots of people watch online, and the capacity of those servers needs to increase during the 3-hour-long period, and then it needs to shrink again, right? And then it increases and shrinks again. So Kubernetes is able to take care of this automatically. So it's it's a good question, Abhilasha. This is one of those CI/CD tools. It's quite popular. Lots of different teams use it together with Kubernetes, but there are also some alternatives, but this is quite popular. So developers may not write it on their profiles. In this case, we don't see here Kubernetes nor Docker, but maybe in skills. No, but what about Kubernetes? No, he doesn't write this. Maybe he used. I would definitely ask him, hey, you seem to be a senior full stack developer. You worked with Amazon. You worked with different tools, but I just want to double check if you also worked with some CI/CD tools. Have you used Docker? Have you used Kubernetes? And probably the developer will say like, yeah, of course, all my projects are based on Kubernetes. So this comes back to what I was mentioning, that the developer may use it, but they may not write it on their profile. So let's look at another developer, Maxim, for example. And meanwhile, I'll try some other combinations. So for example, not Angular, but React. We may look for someone with React experience and upgrade such person to Angular. React. So what about Maxim? Maxim, PHP developer, NDA. Well, not too much written on his profile, unfortunately, but let's look at his skills. Laravel, again, Laravel. So that's the PHP framework. JavaScript is the front end and back end also language, but mostly front end in this case. I mean, in the case of this company we are recruiting for. YE, it's one of those obsolete frameworks based on PHP programming language. So lots of developers shift from YE to Laravel or Symfony. It actually should be pronounced YII, but for some reason, I don't know, it's pronounced YE usually. PHP. Okay, so again, Laravel developer, no mention of Symfony, which is quite strange, right? The search was relatively straightforward, but now I have React here actually. So what about this guy, Ronald? Ronald will be React developer, I assume. This is not in English. He also uses other backend language. Some of you asked about the different programming language on the backend side. So this developer uses C#, and we can check when was it. He might have shifted from PHP developer to C# or from C# to PHP. So let's see. He was a programmer. This is YII or YEE is the PHP framework. So we see he was a developer PHP. And then he was C#, because ASP.NET Core is a C# programming language. So C# is the programming language and ASP.NET Core is the framework. So he was a full stack developer just a year ago. And now we don't really know what technologies does he use in the most recent project. Okay, so now he apparently changed his technical stack. He used to be a PHP developer. From 2016 to 2019, he used the PHP with YII, and then he shifted to C#. So it's quite interesting, right? Probably he's not a good fit for a PHP position right now. He doesn't seem to specialize on PHP anymore, but we could ask him. We don't really know for the last half year or a year what does he work with. So we could ask something like, hey, I see that you, oh no, he actually wrote it here. I'm student and working mostly with PHP. So he wrote it here. Okay, so we know he's a PHP developer. It's a pity it's not in English, but it says, I work with PHP. So with this information, we know he would be a PHP developer. He worked with PHP for 3 years here and maybe another year since then. So could be a media developer, probably a good fit to this position. We don't know though which framework has he used beyond YE. Was it it's not written here. We don't really know. And if it was to YII, then we could use the same approach as with Zend. Hey, I see you use this. It's an old, obsolete framework. Why don't you join this company where you can work with the latest and greatest technology? Pedro asked, what would be the best way to source candidates with at least 2 years of experience with JavaScript, Angular, or React, but not Node, Vue, C# or PHP focused? At least 2 years of experience with JavaScript, Angular. So if you are looking for a more senior developer, then it comes down to some additional technologies they use. So for example, they may use some of these testing frameworks or automation tools or SAS or less. So if you open up the mind maps on the page number 14, you would see some of these tools like Gulp, Grunt, Uglify, for example, right here on the right hand side, actually left hand side from this angle. So I will use some additional keywords beyond JavaScript because those more advanced, more senior developers use some more advanced tools. So based on those tools, I can gauge if the developer is a junior or a senior. So I would use some of these keywords, or for example, SAS or less. And at least 2 years experience with JavaScript. Well, it's a pity there is no such search, right? Like, because developers just enter the skill, but they don't indicate for how long have they been working with it. And if you think about it, like some people may work with JavaScript for 3 years, but just on a part-time basis, maybe some evening project, while others work for 3 years with JavaScript full-time. So the number of years doesn't really tell us much, especially with developers who contribute to some open source repositories, and they may only work with a particular technology a few hours per week. So this doesn't really tell us much anyway. Angular more than version 2, React, but not not Node, Vue, C# or PHP focused? Well, you can always exclude. I'm just looking now at this LinkedIn Recruit. And if you don't want someone who used React.js, you just exclude this person. So there is this little trick. You can exclude React.js, for example, and it will find people who are not or who don't have React.js on their profiles. So you can always use this. Say with PHP, so only PHP developers, but nothing with React. It would be this. Or you can also exclude Vue.js, and you would have only backend developers, not Node. And you can also exclude the C#, for example. So I type it here, but then I exclude C#. So now it will be included, but I exclude it in a second. Yeah, welcome, Pedro. So let's open up a few of these candidates. Gosh, they are not candidates yet. I'm already imagining, sending offer to these guys, but no, they are not candidates yet. They are just profiles. So Vladimir, full stack senior Java developer, backend with Java Spring Hibernate, frontend Angular, JavaScript, jQuery, system modeling, database design. So looks quite senior. Just by looking at these technologies, you can see that he is more than just a junior backend or junior frontend developer. He has a wider range or wider scope. He also used these CI/CD tools, so DevOps tools, Jenkins, Maven to automate Amazon cloud services, Docker, probably with Kubernetes. He uses databases, either Postgres or MySQL. They're very similar because they are relational databases. So either Progress or MySQL, not Progress, but Postgres, MySQL, MS SQL. So with this guy, full stack developer, we don't really know what programming language has he been using, but we can check his skills. Java 2014 already, so that's quite old project. So he also worked with PHP. What I've seen with developers is they also transition from PHP to Java or JavaScript. And I haven't seen too many developers transitioning from Java to PHP, but rather the other way. Exclude Boolean also means someone who has C# written anywhere on the profile. Maybe they also mean that the team worked with C#, but not him, and that he learned C# years ago. I have to be careful. Yes. Now I excluded the skill. You can also exclude it, probably elsewhere, but I excluded it as a skill. Say what would happen if I type it here? Keyword C#. Well, there are still some candidates who have excluded C#, but they have it elsewhere. So let's open up one of them, and we will see where do they have C# on their profile. Maybe it will be somewhere in the About section. Yeah. Good point.
It's 5 o'clock.
Gosh, how come it's 5 o'clock already? The time flies, right? Like crazy. So C#. Programming with C#. So he has taken some certification. Yeah, certifications. programming with C#. So the keyword is here, but we excluded those who have the skills, but he has it here. So it's not a skill. He took some certificate. So in fact, practically he has this skill apparently. He took some certification, so he must have learned it, but he does not have it in his skills. Gosh, imagine how amazing it would be if developers had accurate profiles with the right skills and the length and the intensity of their work experience across these skills. That would be a game changer for us in recruitment, right? And probably we would not be needed on the market anymore. So crazy, right? Maybe one day we will get there. So yeah, that was, we saw a few guys. Like, we could continue, and you see the pattern. What is really important is to identify who to look for and identify some of these criteria, like PHP, Symfony, React, PHP, Symfony, Angular, PHP, Zend, React, PHP, Zend, Angular, etc. And then when you have it, you just go through profiles, and it's more of a mundane task. So if you guys would ever like to join the program, we start the next group in June 21st. So it's already in 2.5 weeks roughly. And like, I've seen Malai here, Juliana, I guess you also joined it before. So if some of you guys would also like to join it, then you can just go to the Tech Recruitment program, and you can join this particular program. It's a great fun. Usually we meet, and this is a webinar, but when we meet during this program, it's much more interactive. It's usually a meeting where people can just unmute themselves, and it's much more interactive, much more fun. So if you guys would like to grab your ticket, whether the standard or VIP ticket, then just go to the website, Tech Recruitment Program. Last time there were 20 people. In March there were also 20 people. Before also, so so far we always kept it to 20, so we can engage and interact, and it's great fun. But you also learn a lot about the IT terminology, and it sort of accelerates the whole career. Like, for example, Malai, it was so cool to see him, start a new career as a part of, like, while he was on the program. And there are, other examples of people who completed the program and they received a new job offer because they suddenly actually understood the IT recruitment. So, yeah. How ATS works, how to prepare best resume in recruitment domain with Considering Ats. Well, ATS is applicant tracking system. So it depends which one do you use. It's like a CRM, or it's just a tool. So it depends which tool do you choose to pay for. None of them is free, so you have to pay for it. You get resumes, you upload to your applicant tracking system, and you work with candidates and you submit to clients. If you work as external recruiter, if you work as internal recruiter, then you submit these candidates to your hiring managers. In the best case, they can access the applicant tracking system. So it's very straightforward. Actually, the advantage of this program is that you can then also join our job board, which is somewhere here. I had a screenshot. Or have I dropped it? No. So you can also, oh yeah, it's here. So you can start, after you go through the program, you can start also recruiting for our international clients, which is really cool if you would like to earn some commissions on the side. So people who went through the program last month and the month before, some of them who felt like they obviously, if you don't want, then there is no point of joining it, obviously, right? This vendors portal. But those who learned and joined this vendor portal, they are able to submit candidates right away. And obviously we split commissions, so you can earn some decent commissions right away. So this is also a great advantage of the whole program, which is supposed to help you not just learn how to do it, but after you finish, then you can start working with us. And also in the previous group, we hired someone to join our team. In the previous group in March, we also hired one person. So there are so many opportunities that we are also looking for people to join our teams, and this program is also here to help you understand about the IT landscape, see if the IT recruitment is good for you if you have never done it, and learn how to do it properly, and then start doing it for our clients. So yeah, you can go to techrecruitmentprogram.com if you'd like to get your ticket. We sold it out last time and the time before, and also at the beginning of the year. So don't wait for too long if you are interested, because you may not have a chance to get the ticket, and then you will have to wait, and we will start after summer again. So you may waste 2 months or 3 months of the chance to submit candidates and earn on the side some money. So don't postpone it. While applying for a job, how can one make resume while considering ATS? Not sure I understand this question. So if you are applying for a job, how can you make resume while considering applicant tracking system? Well, applicant tracking systems can work with PDFs or Word documents. So when you create your resume, then just create it and export it as a PDF or Microsoft Word document. And that's usually enough for the applicant tracking system to be able to recognize what is written inside and create an entry in the applicant tracking system. Oh yeah, Pedro, you wrote 40% of IT sources will be obsolete. Well, but like realistically, that's where this all is heading, right? Countless of companies are creating software to automate a lot of what we do. So it's just a matter of time when this sourcing will be replaced. And then we in recruitment, we need to look at how to add more value on the market, which is also what we cover in this program, how to focus on screening candidates, marketing these opportunities, selling to those candidates. So that's our added value. And usually recruiters cannot do it without understanding the IT landscape, because it's really hard to talk to hiring managers if you don't know what is CI/CD, DevOps, Kubernetes, Docker, because they just flash these words and you need to understand it. You need to be able to catch it quickly. And it's also difficult to screen candidates if you cannot engage with them and talk to them. So that's why we developed this program in a way that it's able to take someone who has never worked in IT and we inject the right terminology. But we also look at how you can level up, because sourcing is not sustainable in the long run. It will be replaced by some of these tools. Also, LinkedIn doesn't want us to send messages to people on a daily basis. They introduced some new restrictions when it comes to sending invites. So it's good to look at it through these lenses, that some part of the job is going to be replaced, whether we want it or not, by some automation or AI or some more advanced features on LinkedIn or some completely other tools. It's just a matter of time. Pedro, you agree 100%? Most HR recruiters for getting behind international recruiters, sourcers, getting much more area. Yeah, definitely. Yes. So true. And I've been training in all these, Experis, Manpower, Accenture, and they face the same challenges. Junior recruiters know nothing about IT, and senior recruiters don't want to work for them because they can get more money elsewhere. So it's not the best case in their case. You worked in Experis. Oh yeah, well, 2 years ago. So yeah, it is what it is. I just realized I sent the link only to panelists. So, gosh, this feature on Zoom is really killing me. It's by default only to panelists, and if you don't notice it, then you don't send it to everyone, which is probably good sometimes, but I often forget to change it. Okay, cool. So let's wrap it up today. If you guys ever, want to increase your IT recruitment competencies and earn some more money on the side, join this Tech Recruitment program, become members of the Tech Recruitment Academy. We are, working with people in different countries who are helping us, submit great candidates to clients. So you can also earn some commissions on the side, or part-time, or whatever works for you best. But let's first learn how to do it properly. So if you just go to techrecruitmentprogram.com, you'll be able to get the ticket. Don't wait for too long, because it will sell out again, as it was already pretty much all the time this year. So yeah, thanks a lot, Pedro. I'll connect with you on LinkedIn. Thank you. Have a great weekend, everyone, and we will keep in touch. Thanks, Jerome. Thanks, Abhilasha. Thanks, Depti. Good to see you here again. Have a wonderful day, everyone.